Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, the plays and strategies working for sales teams today. No high-level overview. We get into the actual weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their business. And we've got two sponsors. The first is Inside the Sales Playbook, is sponsored by SalesKit. Now, SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform, making it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works. You can get your free trial if you go to www.getsaleskit.com. And we're sponsored by a book, my book, that's Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. You can get a free copy of that book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a sales contributor, at getsaleskit.com/book. And today, I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Mr. Tony Lenhart. He's a partner and he's the sales drummer at the Sales Empowerment Group. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Tony and I have gotten to know each other over the past couple of months. We've always had some really great conversations. Tony's got a great newsletter that he puts out on a monthly basis. I'll let him explain more of that I've really enjoyed and gotten to take some really great takeaways from as well. And Tony, for those that don't know about Sales Empowerment Group, what do you guys do to help your clients achieve their mission?
Sure, absolutely. At a really high level, we help companies build or rebuild their teams. And specifically, we run a kind of an unconventional sales rep incubator model, almost like a AAA farm team, to help quickly ramp and accelerate everything from the onboarding, training, and just acclimation into the sales world.
Awesome. Well, I think that's exactly why, we connected and we both have a love of training and onboarding and obviously sales.
Yep.
But what I'm really excited for this conversation is to really dive into your training and onboarding and really get into how do you take some of these newer reps that maybe have never sold in a sales profession before, and how do you get them up and running? But before we jump into that, Tony, man, what the heck is a sales drummer? Explain that. How did you become the sales drummer?
Yeah, right on. Who doesn't love a drummer?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. My old man, actually, my dad played in a polka band growing up, on drums, of course.
Yeah.
So from the time I could crawl, walk, stand, I had a drum set in the basement. My father was also in sales. So it's a little bit of a nod to my old man as the original sales drummer. But when I left corporate America, I started kind of using that moniker. And you already mentioned, thank you, my newsletter I've been doing, which is kind of my monthly digest of like what I'm seeing on the business world. And also I'm still a big music guy and I still actively drum and gig and play out. So I'm always on the search for new music and supporting that world, which has been a tough one in 2020 with, some of you might be familiar with the Save Our Stages movement that's going on. So in any case, that's sales drummer in a nutshell. And I guess one thing I'll add is, drummer is an old school term for a salesperson.
Okay.
Back in the old days, like before, before media, when the salesperson would come into town to sell their wares, pots and pans, or whatever you needed back then, literally they would bang on a drum.
Really? I had never heard that before.
Which is where you'll hear the phrase, hey, I'm out there beating the drum, or, drumming up business. Yeah.
Huh. Well, just already, we're only a few minutes into this and already some historical sales knowledge being dropped. I know this, I knew this was going to be a great episode. Well, Tony, now, I know we've talked a lot about your sales history and your sales progress, but man, talk to the audience a little bit, of all the things you could have done, why the hell did you even choose sales?
Yeah, I'll stay right on the path of, I grew up around it. My dad, he was in insurance sales, but when I was in high school, he bought a water ski shop. I grew up in rural Indiana where we had a lot of lakes. So we sold skis and ropes and wakeboards and all those type of things. And so I would watch my dad just do his thing and be a salesman. And it was like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So when I went to school in Purdue, I knew they actually had a selling and sales management major. So I'm not one of those people that like accidentally got into sales. I was always pretty intentional about it. I didn't know that this is, the career path that has unfolded, of course, has been awesome. And I feel lucky to be able to do what I'm doing. But I mean, I still, for 12 years, I carried a bag and I still am out there selling today, in addition to my work that I'm doing with my clients. So.
That is awesome. So you grew up in it. You've had corporate careers. You actually majored. You're one of the few people I know that have actually majored or studied sales, which I think is pretty awesome. So you've seen a lot of sales companies. You've seen a lot of sales-driven organizations, and you work with a lot of sales leading companies right now. So talk to us a little bit, Tony. What do you think is separating the good sales teams from the really great sales-driven organizations right now in 2020?
Wow, good to great. There's a lot of different places we could go with that. I think since the pandemic hit, it's been hard for leaders to just fully trust and empower their salespeople that they're going to get the job done. So one thing I see in great sales organizations, to your question, is kind of a sense of trust, between the leadership group and their salespeople, that they're out there doing the right things, right? So is the salesperson, being reliable and pulling through with what they need to do? When that happens, again, I see that because, you hopefully have great people from the get-go, but two, you have a leadership team that has, drawn the line in the sand, said, here's what we're all about, communicates transparently and consistently. And I think it helps the salespeople level up. There creates a sense of ownership. Right?
So it sounds like really having that level of trust amongst executive leaders and salespeople, and being able to really foster and create that environment for salespeople to thrive.
Yeah. And then the second thing, and this may be a little bit more generic and just what I see with salespeople in general, but they don't project their own maybe negative views or perceptions of the market when they're out there selling, right? They have decided we've seen companies that have just really decided to charge the storm, right? As opposed to put their head in the sand during this. And hey, man, this has impacted so many, this time has impacted so many industries in so many different ways. So, I mean, there's been winners and losers, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that. Yeah. So companies that are just full throttle, going after it, not making excuses for the market or anything else, but just going forward. Yeah, I really, really like that. Well, Tony, I know one of the things that a lot of people have been reaching out to me about, as I'm sure they have with you, is all about training and onboarding, especially since training and onboarding has really changed over the past couple of months. Everybody I talk to is looking to either reduce their ramp time or increase the quality of their training process. So how about you give the listeners a little bit of insight into, how many people are you training? You talked about the incubator program. So talk to them about kind of what that incubator program looks like and what does your onboarding and training process really look like at SEG?
Sure. So a little bit of background to help frame it. So SEG started 11 years ago as a recruiting company. Then we started doing consultings when I joined about 8.5 years ago, where we were going into companies and popping the hood and looking, right? And the consistent thing we heard is we have trouble recruiting, onboarding, training, and ramping, managing young salespeople. So we started this sales rep incubator 6 years ago on a whim with 6 employees and a client, right? Wow. And so over the last 6 years, we've now incubated about 500 salespeople. Just under half of those have been hired away by their clients, which is part of the program. They get hired away after, usually 6 to 12 months. And then we still have about 70 that are in-house. So Every month, we had a little COVID dip, but usually consistently over the last few years, we're onboarding probably 8 to 10 new salespeople a month.
Wow.
Through our program in a lot of different industries.
That's incredible. Yeah. Tell us more about that.
That's just a little bit of the framework and background of what we've been through. So, yes, there's been a pivot. We use Microsoft Teams to having to house that and facilitate training and do all those things. Our offices are now open downtown Chicago, so we're bringing people in to do that. That first week is a very intensive sales deep dive all around. Most of our reps were focused on top of the funnel. So, today's nomenclature, BDR, SDR. So the first thing that we do with these reps when they walk in is kind of set the vision. Is we have a wall of fame of all the people that have been promoted, which you can see on my LinkedIn page, the picture of everybody. And we say, listen, these people I got hired away because they did one thing. They performed, they achieved the outcomes that their clients were looking for. And that's what this week is focused about, to make sure that you get on that wall of fame someday and your career moves forward. Right. So I think talking about the why, which is a little cliche, but talking about the why before getting into the grunt of it. But then that 1 week intensive includes a lot of tactical sales topics around time management and script building, and working with and through gatekeepers. But then there's also a lot of time focused around role playing as a group and individually.
Okay. Just for an example, so for that first week, how much time is allocated? So I really love the why, right? And really setting that vision. But if you could break it down, are you spending an entire day on script building, an entire day on time management and role playing? Just give us an example of what kind of a snapshot of a week in the life would look like.
Yeah, and that first week, no, they're not spending a whole day on scripting. And we one thing we also do is we build a playbook with the client before that rep starts. So they do have their kind of sales Bible when they start. But when as far as the onboarding goes, we're tackling probably 3 to 4 topics over the course of a day, and then those reps, one thing I forgot to mention is the reps are also shadowing, right, as safely as you can these days, other reps in the field, remotely or whatever it is. So there's a really big mix of instructor-led training, playbook study, pairing up with one of your fellow trainees to practice and role play and discuss, and then also shadowing. And then some outside self-study that we use with different TED Talks and different sales trainers that are out there. There's so many, there's so much great content on LinkedIn. We tell them follow certain people. So I think the lesson there is it's a very well-rounded onboarding process to make sure we're engaging the people the way they like to engage and like to learn.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. Of the 8 to 10 that you're adding every month, what's the failure rate of that? Do you have 1 or 2 that don't pass, or what does kind of that process and pass-fail rate look like?
Yeah, good question. Our, specifically to us and SEG and the way we do things are, again, a little unconventional and unique. Is before we even bring them in, we take them through a 3-step interview process before presenting them as a candidate to the client. So we, at that point, feel that they've passed kind of the sniff test of they're going to thrive in our environment based on the criteria that we look for. Nice. Now, then it's up. We got to make sure there's a good fit between, our client and the rep. But at the end of the day, the short answer question is 60% of our reps get hired away by the client. Okay. So, you do the math there, right? There's going to be 2 out of 5 that probably don't cut it at the end of the day and realize, oops, sales is not for me.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to figure out early in the career than later in the career. How do you know when someone is really ready? What are some of the signs that you look for as a sales trainer, as an individual who's been selling for a really long time? What are some of the things you're really looking for to say, all right, this person is now ready. Let's let them loose on the market, or let's let them take that next step in their sales career?
Sorry, Mark, can you pause it right there? I just had somebody, at the end of the day, it's sales. It is about results, right? However they get to the outcome we're looking for, we're going to support it. So what do we see? We need skill and we need will, right? We're going to train you on the skills and get you there and give you everything you need on an ongoing basis, right? And help develop that skills. Willpower and actually wanting it, that's, can it be trained? It can be coached, I think, to a level, right? Mm-hmm. So where I'm going with it is they've shown that they have the skills, they have the willpower to thrive, and they're getting the outcomes and the results at the end of the day. So when we see a maturity level, going back to what I talked about earlier too, a little bit about trust, the stereotype for these entry-level sales reps is you really got to micromanage them, which certainly we're tracking activity and all the right metrics, of course. But at the end of the day, I just want to trust that rep that if their job is to go put 3 to 4 new meetings on the board every week and they're doing it, God bless, right? Yeah. It's all at the end of the day, just one more thought on that. I think this is a legacy of COVID as well, that it's more about output than hours. Not that I'm advocating for a 4-hour work week or anything, but I'm just saying that's where the trust comes in.
Yeah, I really like that, and having some of that balance. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Do you have a favorite tool that the team uses for onboarding that you could share with the audience?
This is going to sound a little simple, but I want this to be easy for everybody, and that's the use of video in their onboarding. Now, there's plenty of places you can store everything, right? I'm a fan of having a shared drive and a tool like that to put everything in one place. But the use of video, and here's where it is, video in recording them doing their pitch, even though it might just be over the phone, but recording them saying it. Yeah. Recording the founder, CEO of the company talking about mission, vision, values, or their founder story. Using video to record the top salesperson at the company, record how they do their presentation or overcome certain objections that always pop up, top of the funnel and mid funnel. So there's use of, you hear about use of video in outreach and the sales process. Oh, it's great, but man, there's so many applications, simple ones for onboarding, where you can get that tribal knowledge from people and document it and allow those new people to listen to it again and again and again and get it ingrained.
Yeah, I really like that, and using video. And I think, the world had to obviously speed up with COVID, right, to get onto video. And those that were on it before, I think, are really benefiting, but it's great to see a larger adoption. Well, since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show, we've got to talk about your sales playbook. Tell us a little bit about, what one would see in their sales playbook. What are some elements of it that you deem are just really successful for your organization?
Yeah. Well, I just mentioned one, which is the use of video, right? So we'll have a section on there that's, again, those components I talked about from a leadership standpoint and then from the sales rep standpoint. Another thing that we like to put in there is, again, I mentioned this before, but outside people, TED Talks, certain people to follow in the industry and in the world of sales and marketing that are going to, because majority of our clients are spending, or our reps are spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. Yep. There's great stuff to absorb out there, and with as far as ongoing learning goes. Now, when it comes to another component of the playbook that's important is we also, customize what the cadence is going to be, right? What is that combination of 8 to 12 touches over 30 to 60 days that we're going to customize based on the industry and the persona and the product or service offering, right, are all variables that will go into that. So we really try and whiteboard that and put a lot of thought into it. Again, depending on those variables.
And so for each one, it's obviously different. For each client, it's a little bit different. But is there similarities amongst the cadence? Are you taking, hey, this is what's worked the best over the past 5 years for, these clients, and then you're kind of creating this super cadence formula for the type of industry and persona?
Yeah, we absolutely are, right? And it's, we've done it in so many different industries, Mark. It's hard to still even today pinpoint, you see surveys out there of like, hey, if you only had one tool for your prospecting outreach, what would you use? Is it LinkedIn? Is it phone? Is it email? And everybody has their camps on that. Man, what I have learned, again, seeing 500 reps come through the system in dozens of industries, I'll get a little bit in the phone camp, but I'll also say, man, it's so specific of like meeting your persona, your customer where they are. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
So, smaller businesses, we see phones work really, really well. At an enterprise level, sometimes we see using like LinkedIn video and voice drop after being in connection with somebody works really, really well and repeatable. But the big, like the overarching umbrella I'll put around all of that, and hopefully I'm doing a good job of it here, is the use of creative brevity, right? So saying as much as possible in the fewest possible words, and that goes for your phone communication, your email communication, and your LinkedIn.
I really like that, the creative brevity. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than connecting with someone on LinkedIn and then all of a sudden getting like a 3-page diatribe of every single service that they potentially offer, where it's like, where is this coming from? What is this about?
Yeah,
I like that, the creative brevity.
I heard, you might know Todd Capone, who wrote the Transparency Sale. I heard him refer to it as being pitch slapped by somebody, which I really liked. I'll give kudos to him.
Yeah, I like that a lot. One final thing, as we're in the topics and we're in the weeds really of what you're doing from a sales and training perspective, any other final thoughts when it comes to, you guys have helped train, develop, really grow the careers of over 500 salespeople. Is there any other piece of advice if I'm an entrepreneur or if I'm a sales leader listening to this and saying, man, what could I take away from Tony? That is there one thing I could be doing to better improve my onboarding and training process that you guys have obviously really dialed in?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that idea of a sales playbook for a second, as opposed to thinking like, why do I have it? To begin with, it's like, well, what happens when you don't have it? What happens when you don't have a playbook? So one of two things. The traditional method for a lot of people out there has been, I'm just going to hire that tenured salesperson that's been there, bought the t-shirt, they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the downsides of something like that? If I'm considering doing that and I'm listing this program, what's your advice for someone who's considering doing that and bringing, a senior level manager or sales rep in and have them, that they can just build out my sales process?
I'd say, and listen, I have nothing against that. I mean, we're doing a little bit of the opposite, right? We grew them from right out of school or very little experience, but you can find those people, but with them come their own bad habits and perceptions about how they view the marketplace and what has worked for them in the past, which, as we pointed out in the last few months, just call it since the pandemic, a lot of things have changed, right?
Yeah.
Sales framework is still there, but as far as how we communicate has changed a lot. So you have to be super cautious just assuming that they're going to walk in and know all that stuff and all the nuances of your company. And there's the transition back to why have a playbook. Everybody that comes to us says, oh, we're so unique. We're very, very unique. And you are and you aren't. Okay. I mean, it's about outcomes. We have to all go out and grow sales. And what do you do that? By following up a lot and getting a lot in the pipeline.
Yep.
Without going too far in the weeds there. But to your point, the owner of the company, there is nuance. You are unique. So capture that. I used the phrase tribal knowledge earlier. And whether you do it in video or you do it in the framework of a playbook to capture, this is our brand and how we want to go to market and what we want people to hear. Man, you can't, somebody that's not been part of your company and just comes in with 20 years of experience, they're not going to know that little granular stuff that might make you differentiate and pop versus the competitor.
I really love that. So always having a sales playbook, not leaving it to chance, not just hoping that, all right, we're going to bring someone in, they'll know exactly our story, they've done all this research, but really being intentional about your sales process. I really love that. Well, Tony, I think this is a good time. Let's pivot and let's close out with the final 5. These are the 5 rapid fire questions I'll be asking you. I'll ask them, you answer them. Are you ready?
Fire away, Mark.
All right. Favorite sales related movie?
Favorite sales related movie. I'll can I say show and pivot and say Mad Men?
Sure. Yeah, we'll take that. Okay, so Mad Men.
Like the way that Don Draper presents himself in front of the board.
Yep, I would agree with that. Favorite sales book?
The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. You can read it in a day.
That is a great one. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales? And let's say your first professional sales.
Yeah, I would say just the power of a network and being able to stay top of mind. There's a lot of people I met in the first 10 years of my sales career that I still wish I had their emails and business cards.
Yeah, I bet. That's cool. That's a good piece of advice. Best purchase of 2020 under $100.
You know what? When COVID hit, I got on a real Facebook Marketplace tear just for the fun of it. I bought myself a drum set, but that was over $100. But below, for $7, I bought my two little girls a ginormous box of plastic dinosaurs that have brought so much joy to this house. You can't even imagine. So I'll offer you that one. But as far as functional, for $20, I bought a little standing desk thing for my laptop that I use all the time. And right now, actually.
That's awesome. I love that. That's the first time I've ever heard a giant box of plastic dinosaurs as favorite purchase. That's a good one. And what's a favorite social media follow? Or who is a favorite social media follow?
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you one guy that I respect a lot that is an industry leader in the type of work I do is a guy named Jake Dunlap.
Okay.
That I follow, who's really, really great. Puts out a lot of solid content.
Awesome. And if our listeners want to connect with you, where can they do so?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn, of course, Tony Lenhart. And then when we send this out, Mark, I'll also put a link to my newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, there's a couple older issues on there that you can check out. And if you like it, sign up.
All right. I'll definitely make sure we include links to both. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Tony Lenhart with the Sales Empowerment Group. Tony, thanks so much for taking us inside your sales playbook.
Yeah, you bet, Mark. Thanks for the convo. Appreciate it.
Thank you.